Riot Games have had their hands full of all sorts of different projects. Not only are they actively upkeeping and updating their primary game, League of Legends, continuing development of other games like LOR and Valorant, but are also developing other titles that could expand on the world of Runeterra. And one of those is an MMO. And you probably know that Riot Games has been working on an MMO for at least a little bit. However, there really isn't too much information out there about the gameplay, the systems, the game. Fine, they don't want to talk about it until they actually get some solid footage and solid gameplay and systems in there that are good to go and show us on, for all the hungry fans that are waiting for this game to come out. I mean, MMO players are pretty starved of anything. Love, sunshine, hair. However, Greg Street, aka Ghostcrawler, has said a few things on Twitter in response to a question that was asked of him that pertains to the raid bosses of the Riot MMO. You probably can't answer, but I'm wondering if dungeon bosses will be any champions we know of. I keep imagining struggling to take down a Chogath. It has me really intrigued. We want to treat the champions with a lot of respect. I'm not saying you will never fight any of them, but we aren't going to just turn to them anytime we are short on boss ideas. Now, this is super important because this means, one, there's gonna be new enemies to fight, new people to encounter. There's gonna be other characters besides the champions in the game, which obviously is a big, huge game. It's an MMO. There's gonna be all sorts of different characters besides the champions, okay? The champions are going to be in there, but there is a chance that we could be fighting some of the champions that we know and love in our game of League of Legends. And this could happen in even raids, dungeons, story, or the open world, which is great. It's awesome. I love the idea that we could be fighting Garen maybe, or something like that. I mean, maybe not Garen, but maybe hopefully Garen. I mean, Garen's pretty dumb. Let's just be honest. We just don't really Garen. But who would we fight? What kind of villains are going to be in these encounters? Well, there are some pretty likely candidates. And I want to preface this from the start. Disclaimer, this is my thoughts, my speculation. I have no idea who's going to be in the game or not. I know who's going to be in raids or bosses or anything like that. This is just my thoughts. And if you have any thoughts of your own, please leave them down in the comments below. Now, starting off, we have one of my favorite regions in the game, Shurima. And we have two likely champions that could fit the spot of raid boss from this region. The most obvious would probably be Xerath. He's the betrayer of the previous kingdom, of the previous empire, sacrificing his best friend to attain the powers of the sun disk for his own, but then, he wasn't the chosen one or the worthy one, and his whole flesh and physical being got stripped away, but instead was left with a being of pure magic, which I guess is fine. I don't know why this was a bad thing in the first place. I guess he can't, do the, that stuff. I mean, he doesn't have a penis of pure magic. Magic dick! I think he'd make a wonderful raid boss, considering that he has some already kind of raid boss mechanics. He shoots magic balls everywhere, beams of magic, and rains magic from the sky, and more magic. Plenty of ways you could turn him into a raid boss and make mechanics to dodge stuff, or mechanics that would cause you to have to do different things, soaking mechanics, or all sorts of other different stuff. Also, for a reason to fight him, obviously people despise him in Shurima. He goes around just making a mess everywhere, causing havoc in an attempt to try to remove any sort of history of the old empire or emperor, which is a reason to fight him. An example of this is outlined in one of Nasus's stories. It's actually a combination Nasus to Leah story, where he ends up defending Sivir, the last defendant of the royal line, against Xerath, who's trying to search for her and kill her. So plenty of reasons to fight him and protect the region of Shurima from his conquest. But there's another Shurima raid boss that has a connection with Xerath. The return of the Shuriman Emperor Azir has filled many people with mixed feelings. What will Azir do now that he's returned? What does that mean for Shurima? Who knows? Why is he a bird? Can he fly? He doesn't have wings or feathers, but we think he can fly. He must turn into a pigeon, like an animorph. Now, from what I've gathered, Azir is just really trying to exact revenge on Xerath. He's pretty pissed off that his best friend tried to kill him for power. I mean, a little bit irked, pushed me out of the way, got me killed, and my entire family murdered, and kind of ruined the vibe a little bit. So if we could get back to you, I will just slide this knife between your ribs. But there are also some worries from different regions of Shurima where they worry that he's trying to wrestle control from these independent city-states and regions of Shurima to try to like just reclaim what he had before and rebuild Shurima into its like previous glory and things like that. And while I don't think Azir is a villain, he definitely doesn't, we don't really know his intentions at all. And so there could be a reason to fight him at some point. And fighting him would be pretty cool. He summons sand soldiers all over the place, big walls of soldiers with shields. He can command sand. I mean, sand. Now, moving away from the deserts of Shurima, there is a region, more accurately a place, that has probably the most potential for raid bosses to come out of it. The Void. I could make a list of all the Void creatures like Belveth and Vel'Koz that we get into fighting, the Watchers even. But as far as champions go for a raid boss, I think there's one that makes that makes perfect. It takes the cake even. Chogath, the terror of the Void. He goes around just consuming everything in his path. He literally consumes stuff in order to grow to a specific size for his needs. He just needs to, he needs to get bigger. I'm just gonna eat some stuff. And he definitely fits the description of your average raid boss. He's a huge monster, gets bigger by eating things, and we have to stop him. He's generally a bad guy because, you know, the Void is bad because it wants to get rid of us because it makes them scream. Watchers are like, existence, ouch, reality, it gives me pain and makes my bones rattle. I'd be like, same bestie. It'd be really awesome to see him in kind of like his true form, his natural size, because we don't get to see champions in their real natural size in the game of League of Legends, because you really, you need to see stuff in order to play the game. But moving away from the Void, we're gonna go to a more watery place. A bit of bilge. Water. I didn't really know where I was going with that. Now, a champion we all know and love and hate could not only be a raid boss, but also could be the opening act for a much larger, more mysterious raid boss. Alawi, the Kraken priestess, is large and in charge, and I think she'd be perfect as a raid boss, or lead up to a raid boss, like I said. But additionally, she could be an opening act for a much more mysterious and larger enemy, Nagakaboros herself, the Kraken god, in her giant glory. Imagine witnessing her and actually like seeing her for the first time in all of her tentacles. They really need to think of something else. Now, besides tentacles, there's not really a whole lot going on there. There's some other ones, maybe like Gangplank could be a raid boss. You know, you fight on the ship and stuff. You get the Void barrels or something like that. That'd be kind of cool too. But besides tentacles, sand, pure magic, and barrels, there are a few more champions that could turn out to be pretty great raid bosses, specifically spooky ones. Now, the first I'm going to mention is pretty obvious. Actually, both are pretty obvious. Two of the champions I'm going to talk here about pretty obvious raid bosses, but one of them we've already covered in the lore of Runeterra. The first one is Mordekaiser, a bastion of spook, the juggernaut of fright, a really big guy in armor. In League of Legends, he already feels like a raid boss, pretty much unkillable when he builds Riftmaker and just walks around slapping you with his big old mace, and he's one of the most visually amazing ultimates in the game. It'd be a no-brainer to have him as a raid boss because he's literally a raid boss, and we explore the Shadow Isles probably at some point. But there is another ghostly champion that could also be a raid boss, but also not. You see, we have already covered his story in a graphic novel. Viego has the potential to be probably a really good raid boss and a good story. He commands the spooky sauce itself, goes around through the sauce, moving freely and vibing inside, and he has some great abilities that could be great mechanics. I mean, we already know some of them. He can stab, he can punch, and he can stab, but he can also take over your body, and he can also mind control people too. He has some other abilities using the mist. It'd be kind of cool. You could do a lot of stuff with that. Very flexible champion as far as powers go, and you can make some really cool mechanics with that. However, since the events of the Rune King event kind of left him out of commission because, you know, Gwen, Akshan, Lucian, Senna, Vayne, they all kind of like banded together to stop him, and they kind of did, so it might be kind of difficult to bring him back. I'm not saying they couldn't just write something up to kind of like give him reason to come back, and while that is disappointing that we might not see Viego, our sexy king, ever again, there is another, more galactic-sized champion that could be a raid boss. Aurelion Soul would be a fantastic boss, and I know you're like, well, Aurelion Soul isn't really a bad guy, and I would argue that he's not a bad guy. Kind of like Azir, he's not like, he's like in this middle ground where he's not really on anyone's side, he's on his own side, pretty much. One of the largest champions size-wise in the lore, okay? Not in the lore. He's big in the lore, okay? And there really wouldn't be a reason to fight him unless he gets free from the Targonians' grasp on him. The Void wouldn't be the only problem for the Targonians if Aurelion Soul gets free. Now, that could mean that if we have to side ourselves with the Targonians, then we have to like fight with them and keep Soul at bay or something like that. Would we even be able to? Would it be more like we have to just keep him from like destroying Mount Targon or something like that? What if there was like in character creation, you can have like a background and your background was Targonian, then you had to defend Mount Targon from Soul, and that was a thing. That'd be a thing. That'd be kind of cool. A lot of work involved, and I probably don't think that will happen, but it'd be kind of neat. So maybe we'll ally ourselves with the Targonians or something like that. We end up having to defend against Soul, and then it turns out that's like, oh god, now the Void is happening. Soul's like, well, I better just freaking take care of the Void because they're taking out my stars and stuff. All right, you guys are fine or whatever. I'm not angry at you anymore. Let's go to kill these guys. And be like, all right, cool. We go space happy dragon stuff flying away into the sunset. It'd be pretty cool. But yeah, that's really all I had for this list of champions that could possibly be raid bosses in the Riot MMO. If you have some more suggestions of raid bosses, dungeon bosses, or anything like that, bosses in general in the Riot MMO, leave them down in the comments down below. What would you like to see in the Riot MMO? Who would you like to fight champion-wise? Also, as just a thing about the channel right now, I have been switching up the content a little bit because I want to do some new stuff. League of Legends is a little bit stale right now. I'm still gonna make content for that, but I also want to cover a lot of the new stuff that Riot is putting out there. There's gonna be Project F, Project L, there's the Riot MMO. This is really exciting stuff because I really like Riot games and I really like all their games. I'm gonna be covering some other stuff on here, so hopefully you guys will appreciate that and enjoy the content. Gonna try to put out more. I always say that I've found a little bit more passion in these subjects than just talking about League of Legends by itself. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I hope you enjoy it and hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you if you made it this far, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.